Are you tired of the modern world? Do you want something to spur you into creativity? Have you tried eating a handful of nickels? Have you tried taking that bobblehead that your grandmother gave you, your prized possession, and just eating it? Have you thought about taking your phone, your electric razor, your toothbrush, just eating all of them? It would be nice to think all of the things we have here in the modern world have some use to them, but they don't. Most of them don't. I mean, they have uses, but not if something bad happened. You sure can't eat your electric razor. That's for sure. If something bad happened, you can't eat that gallon of dish soap you have hiding under your sink. I don't want anything bad to happen. But it is strange. You look around at this modern world and we just see garbage. Garbage everywhere. Garbage in the streets, garbage at home, garbage in our garages, in our attics. Everything's our society and our life used to be nature. And then the garbage, quote unquote, would dissolve into the ground. But now we just have garbage that'll last for 1 billion years. Instead of animal bones, it's a plastic jug of orange juice that your dad with diabetes won't stop drinking. It's his 4th orange juice of the day. That's his 2nd gallon of the week. He's going strong. It's killing him. It's killing us. This is my podcast. It's 10,000 years or something. I like 10,000 years. It's in the movie Chungking Express. It's a good movie. The password to the main character's answering machine was "love you for 10,000 years." I don't know, just something, I love that movie, something about it stuck. I'm going to take that moniker. Welcome to the show. This is number 1. There's a lot to talk about. I just started, or I keep trying to meditate. It doesn't really work. For me. I want to get into the habit more. And today, I started doing a thing where I would sit down, close my eyes, just zazen, meditation, and really start to unpack all the things. Unpack my mind and my brain. It's hard. It's harder than you think. Sitting still and doing nothing may be one of the hardest things we can do as modern humans. I mean, it's so tough. You try sitting there meditating for an hour when you have your smartphone or you have your Xbox, or you could go play 1,000,000 games, you could go eat hyper satiating food that's chemically made to, it's chemically made to represent breast milk and its ratios of fat and sugar and protein. Go ahead, you try sitting. I want to be able to do it. I want it to be a hobby. I want meditating to be a regular hobby. I think it should be for everybody. I mean, there's so many things in this life that they're just so hard to nail down. Life itself is hard to nail down. If you don't stop, it's like that line from Ferris Bueller. If you don't stop and sniff the flowers, the world's going to pass you by, or something. I don't remember exactly. Everybody, you know the line. You get the gist of it. But I'll sit, and I'd like to meditate, but sometimes I get up at an epiphany. I'll sit down, and I'll say, I'm going to meditate for however many minutes. And then after a few minutes, I get an epiphany of what I should do next. Like, I haven't showered in a week. And when I was sitting there, thinking over my life, my epiphany was, go take a shower. And that was nice. I got up, and I took a nice, long, hot shower. Everybody needs a nice, long, hot shower. Physically and mentally. And maybe meditation is like a mental hot shower. It relaxes you and you're allowed to decompress internally. I like that. It's easy to just keep going and not think about things or reflect on things and just keep pushing and trudging along. It's hard to stop and reflect. It's really, truly a hard thing to sit down, think about your whole life, even for 5 minutes. All the distractions. I got rid of my smartphone 6 months ago, and it did get better. You'd think you'd get rid of your smartphone, all your addictions would fly away, your problems in cyberspace would just retreat, and you'd become some sort of monk able to travel the world without any problems at all. Well, it turns out you just replace it with something else. Me, I'll sit on my couch. The last 3 days, I've probably spent 10 hours each day scrolling through racist 4chan posts, watching YouTube videos on motivation when I didn't really want to be motivated. I just wanted to sit on the couch and do nothing. There's so many ways to feed that addiction loop again and again. I'm going to try to stop it today. Today's a new day. I told my friend I wanted to do a podcast. I've tried to do a podcast for the last many years. How many years have I tried doing this? I think today is going to be the first time where we actually get this out there. Not the first time we get this out there. It's going to be the first time that I commit to it. And we keep going and pushing along. And hopefully it'll be a good meditative thing. Maybe everybody should do this. Everybody should try a podcast. Everybody should try meditating. We need more modern meditations. When I sat down to meditate today, it's raining in Los Angeles today, and I closed my eyes and just pretended like I was living 2,000 years ago in a Chinese temple, just listening to the rain, and it brought a smile to my face. It was good. It was a good thought. But maybe that's not appropriate. Maybe I need to clear out my mind, empty it, make it a hollow bowl of some sort. So maybe if it's empty, good things can flow into it like an empty chalice. Spiritual wine can flow in and give me energy and epiphanies and new ideas. It's harder than it seems to talk for an hour about nothing or about everything, about life. If it was a conversation, it's easy. It's easy to have a conversation between two people for many hours. The time just all flies away. There's nothing to really worry about. You sit there and you just let it all come out. But when you're alone, it's so hard. Maybe that goes back to meditating. It's the hardest thing to do is just to sit there and let the natural processes take over. I can feel it in me right now. I don't want to do this. I'm sitting here. I do want to do this, but something inside in me is saying, don't do this. Run away. Go back to YouTube. Go back to being a consumer. It's so easy to be a consumer. It's so easy, and it's so hard to do anything else. God, when you sit there and you're taking that sweet, sweet, pre-generated material, it's like digital honey for your brain. It's all nonsense. You could watch 1 million videos on 1 million things and not learn a single thing. And I'm just surprised how quickly the day goes. It's effortless. I could sit there for 10 hours watching random YouTube videos and scrolling. It's effortless. It's like it's the colored lights just meant to entice you. Modern society is just so strange. I listened to the audiobook by the Unabomber. What is it called? Industrial Society and Its Futures. And the guy seems right. Except, the violence and mailing bombs to people. And at the end, he kind of talks about how refrigeration technology maybe would be a necessary sacrifice for a new society. But he's kind of right in a weird way. Society is hard. It alienates people. In the book, he talks about how there are certain power structures that people fit themselves into. You're either a type 1, 2, or 3. A type 1 power type or structure or whatever is when you can easily get something. I think this is right. You can easily get something and it doesn't produce a lot of reward internally. You could work hard for something and it does produce a lot of reward. Or you could chase something without the possibility of it ever actually happening. And, real life is supposed to be number 2. We hunt down an animal and we kill this big animal and we eat it and it's delicious and we feel the reward. But modern society shoves us into camp 1 and 2, where we get things we don't work for, or we try to work for things that we'll never get, like climbing a company ladder or some sort of happiness through external material means. It was an interesting book. I don't know if it's true if they did Harvard, at Harvard, I think the LSD studies, they fried Ted Kaczynski's brain, and sometimes I feel like that when I smoke weed. You want to drop out of regular society. You just want to run away. There's no reason to do people's jobs for them, to generate money for bosses that don't like you or don't care. Wouldn't it be better to just go live in the woods in a cabin and eat fish that you found and hunt game? And I guess it'd be lonely. That's one of the problems with Ted Kaczynski's theory is I think he bought a cabin out in the woods and wrote his book and mailed bombs to people. That's not how people are supposed to live. You're supposed to live in tribes and communities. I mean, think about how crazy it would be if you went off. Think about how crazy you would turn if you went off into the woods by yourself. I mean, it's clearly relaxing, but if you were just staking your claim out there for the rest of time and you were never going to come back to human society or see any other people, it would be a lonely, lonely game. I think modern society wants us. It wants us to need it. You can't go to your friends and say, let's all buy a cabin in the woods and start some sort of Native American commune where we grow corn and eat acorns. Just nobody's going to do that with you. Nobody wants to do that with you. People want an iPhone. They want to drive their cars. They want to go to the grocery store and buy a tube of meat and a bag of apples. They don't want to hunt. They don't want to pick. It's easy. I don't want to do that either. I want to sit in my nice, comfy little LA shoebox, little place I'm renting out in somebody's house, and just do nothing. I don't even want to make art. I don't want to do anything. I just want to sit here and smoke weed and take the day in. It's a tough game. It's a really tough game to say to yourself, how can I find value in myself and in modern society and in my friends and in my work? I think it was simple at one time, but it was before a massive overstimulation. Now, I don't think it's so simple. I think it's easy to lean into a sort of strange consumerist lifestyle, like I've been doing the past few months, where you don't care. You take your paycheck and spend it all on drugs and food. And then when it's time to sit down and do work that you want to do, you don't do it. You just run off somewhere in your mind, scroll the internet until it's 12 p.m. and you go to sleep. Maybe you jerk off twice, 3 times, 4 times. And then what do? You just go to sleep, wake up the next day, do it all over again. You would conceivably do that for 30 years. Many, many years. There's no reason not to. I mean, why would you? What I mean to say is, would you think that it's not hard to do? I mean, eventually things spur you out of your funk. But God, is it hard. Because the funk is good. The funk is tasty. You can sit there and just do nothing all day. And it doesn't feel any bit worse. At the end of the day, it's fine. There's an underlying sense that things aren't quite right. Things aren't exactly going where they're supposed to be going. And I think it's everyone. It spans the gamut. I have a friend that didn't go to college and started his own business. I have friends that graduated from college with their advanced degrees. I have friends that are in college, and all of them seem unhappy. They work, and they do what they're supposed to do, but God, when you talk to them, it's like we're really trying to shove a round peg into a square hole, or a square peg into a round hole. And then we have this YouTube world where, I want to be on YouTube. Everybody wants to be on YouTube. I think that's the point where we all are supposed to want to be on YouTube. But what happens when we find out it's all bad for us? All this short form content that destroys our brains, it destroys our attention span, so it makes it so that you need the content switching constantly. 7-minute clip here, 7-minute clip there. It's refreshing to read a book or watch a good movie, but sometimes it's so hard to pay attention. I recently watched a great fun movie, Meals on Wheels, directed by Sammo Hung, starring Jackie Chan, and I don't know the other guy's name, Yoon Biao, Chinese name. They're all from Hong Kong. And it was just so much fun. Maybe at one point in time it was like some just trashy Hong Kong action comedy, but God, in the modern age, there's few and far between. Not a lot of movies that are this fun and enjoyable. Some of the stunts that Jackie Chan and the stunt teams, the main characters were doing, even Sammo Hung, who was a character who's a fat guy, God, they were doing some great martial arts moves. But it was an hour and a half. That's the old way of art, the old way of culture, is some sort of long form that you were able to take in, and your attention span rolls with it, understanding the different patterns and like music movements of whatever piece of art it is. Now it's 7 minutes. Now it's 2 minutes. There's nothing wrong with shorts, but so many of them are unartistic. So many of them are just people putting, and I can't stop watching it either. It's a political commentary. Some politician said this, some politician said that. 7-minute video on owning the libs, or the far right has gone too far, and it's entertaining. And you could do that for 12 hours a day and never stop. But it hurts. You're just filling your brain with constant nonsense all day, every day. There's just something crazy about it. You go back to Ted Kaczynski, and reading that book makes you want to go live in a cabin in the woods. I think they're pretty affordable, more affordable than regular houses. There's some plots up near Yosemite, under 10, maybe under 20 grand, plot of land, build a cabin, just plot how to take out your various political opponents. It almost makes you want to do that. What it doesn't make you want to do is participate in society. God, I don't want to. Recently, I think I got a new job at Amazon, but I don't want to fucking go. I don't think anybody wants to go to work. Even all the people I talk to, none of them are really doing passion-driven projects, but all of them, they just want to get out of their lives, to jump out of their skin. Everybody I talk to, they just want to get away and go somewhere else and get out of their lives. And then, you're supposed to culturally cheer them up and go, oh, you can do it. Keep going. It's okay. I don't know if they want to hear that or not. What should I tell them? I don't even know. What am I supposed to say? Oh, maybe you should run away from your obligations and responsibilities. That's what I want to tell them. But who would say that? That's a terrible thing to say to your stressed out peers who are just trying to ingratiate themselves into modern society the best they can. I've failed to do it over and over again. How do I expect them to do it any differently? But they do. They go to work. I have a friend now who's in college and he hates it. They just came to visit me in Los Angeles and they fucking hate school, but they're gonna keep going. I respect it on some level, but on another level, it's pitiful. These smart, intelligent people that just get sucked into the system. They can't think of a way to escape, or they know a way to escape, but they just earn a lot of money. But the journey makes them miserable. In Meals on Wheels, Jackie Chan and the other guy, Thomas and Dylan, those are the characters' names. They're from Hong Kong, so they're, Chinese, but they have English names. And they run this Chinese food truck called the Everybody Kitchen in Spain. That's the whole movie set in Spain. And they look like they're having so much fun, just slinging plates of fried rice and hamburgers. Jackie Chan is skating around on a little 80s skateboard. Everybody seems like they're having so much fun. They have their own little business. I think that's what the world's supposed to be about. People aren't supposed to be consumers. They're supposed to be creators of ideas and spreaders of those ideas. And then you don't consume the idea. You do something else. You digest it. Right? Maybe those two words are synonyms. I think they're different. And to consume something is you just put it in your mouth. You just take it in, no thought about it. But to digest something, it takes time. You have to take it in and let it roll over in your mind. In Meals on Wheels, or I'm sorry, not Meals on Wheels, Wheels on Meals, Sammo Hung is a private eye who's tasked with finding a girl who's the daughter of a rich Spaniard who died, and she's going to inherit the fortune. But there's another guy who looks like M. Bison from Street Fighter who's trying to kidnap her or hold her so he can get the fortune. It's one of those classic, if we can only last this long, or it's one of the classic, if I can only last this long, I'll get the entire family fortune will be mine. And, the two characters who run the food truck they end up, the girl who's going to inherit the throne is a hooker. But she's not actually a hooker. She just steals people's wallets. She just steals the John's wallets and runs away. She has a shame in her. She doesn't want to be a hooker, but she has to steal to keep herself alive. So Jackie Chan and his cousin hire her to be a waitress, and she's bringing burgers around, and seems like she's having fun, and they're doing crazy stunts and backflips and skateboarding. And Sammo Hung, the private eye, is trying to find her. The movie's got some great fight scenes. Such a fun movie. And those guys seem like they're having, in the context of the story, they seem like they're having fun. Living in Spain in the 80s, driving around a cool, souped-up, futuristic food truck van where they sling Chinese food and American food. God, there's this great scene where Jackie Chan's, I don't know if it's always Jackie Chan. I think it has to be. I think they're like, usually if you watch a movie and somebody's doing stunts, it's Brad Pitt. You would assume it's not really Brad Pitt riding the skateboard. You can't put Brad Pitt on a skateboard. He falls off and breaks his face, production stops. But Jackie Chan, those guys are good at stunts. And so when they're, they do these shots of like just feet, but the skateboard is doing crazy tricks. And then they have other shots of him actually riding it. It's like they're having so much fun. And I think that's what movies are. There is some sort of weird window into a reality that you could have, good or bad. I think that's part of the magic of them. And I guess maybe one of the weird, strange supplementary parts of modern society. You can't just run. You could just run off into the woods and live your life, but maybe it's a little easier if a movie character does it. you're able to process it a little easier. You got Badlands, where a loser 25-year-old takes an underage girl across state lines into the woods to live in a treehouse and live out what they think is some sort of idealistic fantasy. That's how it always go. Of course, you shouldn't take underage girls into the woods, just like in that movie, but maybe the message is the same. Trying to fight for freedom and getting out of your everyday grind. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe the best thing to do is sort of be a living Buddha, as Alan Watts would say. Not a stone Buddha, but a living Buddha, and move between the astral realms and human society. Because God, would it be lonely to be out there with nobody? I think we need people. We need other human beings to love and give us inspiration and ideas, other human beings that we can worship and hate and fight against, but also enjoy the company of and cook for. And so often we're just alone in our houses, alone at our desks, alone in our cars, alone for a walk, alone in the bathroom, alone. That's a weird thing. When you watch anime and you look at Roman history, or you see Japan, and people are taking baths together in giant communal groups, a Turkish bath, a Russian bathhouse. And then in America, we atomize. We want everybody to get their own bath in their own house and their own desk and their own car, which is awesome. But then if you have nobody to invite in those places, you're just alone all the time. And I guess we're always alone. But, pack of wolves hunts together. One wolf is scary, I guess, but it's just a dog. 10 wolves, now that's a force to be reckoned with. I was been listening to a lot of Terence McKenna lately. Just smoking a big old joint in my car, sitting there for 2 hours listening to a good podcast or a lecture. And I disagree with Terence on some parts where he talks about, and I guess I don't disagree. I do disagree. Talks about one-child policies and the horrificness of male dominance. And I could see where having overpopulation could be a problem and male dominance could be a problem, but I think we don't have enough strong men and we don't have enough people. Nobody's having kids. He talks about so many interesting things, but one of the most interesting things I think he talks about are the communal spaces of the grasslands that we used to live on, where we would have mushroom orgies and festivals around the full moon. I don't know if any of it is true, but it seems like a plausible enough story. And especially when he talks about families where you'd have these giant moonlit orgies and the men wouldn't know whose children, if that child was theirs or not. I guess is one of the mainstays of a patriarchal hierarchy is knowing who your kids are, to pass down your things and your stuff, which I don't think is that bad. But one of the things he talks about is the woman knows who the child is. The child came out of them, so it's a more of a matriarchal idea. And I don't necessarily think that that's, we don't need to transition to a fully matriarchal society, but in our society, women complain about being baby slaves. Women don't want to be tied to the home, which I totally understand. But then in a strange way, you think, well, who's going to raise the kids? How are we going to have children? How are we going to do all these things? I think that their complaints are totally valid, especially when you consider what Terence said about the mushroom orgies and the woman knowing who her kids are, because what that entails are a communal child raising. The saying, it takes a village. Maybe it really does take a village. Maybe women are unhappy and miserable being alone in the house with their kids all day. How could you blame a woman for being upset with that? It just seems like a job that's not meant for one person. It's not even meant for two people. Maybe raising a kid is meant for 3, 4, 5 different people. Could it be possible that this atomization of human society is just fucking us over again and again, where we have less friends and less relatives and everybody's getting sick and dying, or not dying earlier, but their quality of life drops so drastically? If you're a woman and you have a kid, you're supposed to sit at home all day? No, the modern woman has a job, but who's going to raise the kid? You get some nanny that doesn't really give a shit about the kid? If you're the woman, you would want a grandma there. You would want another woman from the tribe to help you raise your child, and you raise her child, and your kids play together. And I think we're out of that communal living. We're in some sort of market-driven propagandist idea where everybody should have their own thing, which I like, but I mean like your own community, basically, your own cult. If you're a man and you have a kid, you should work hard and raise that kid, and the woman should raise your child, and everything will be all right. Maybe that's not how it's supposed to go. Maybe we're all supposed to not share our things, but share community spaces in a way that would make it so people aren't so fucking miserable all the time. I mean, God, the amount of people I talk to, it's not just me. All the well-adjusted people I know, or seemingly well-adjusted people, they're all miserable too. I don't really think I'm projecting that hard. I've had friends try to commit suicide. I've had friends cry. I've had friends have anxiety attacks. I've had anxiety attacks. What is anxiety? It's like your flight or fight mechanism is stuck in one section and it won't turn off. Your flight or fight just won't go away. Because of all the stresses of modern life, you think you're being chased by a fucking jaguar, when in reality you just haven't done your taxes. And they're creeping on you, and your bills are creeping on you, and the jaguar of the federal government is breathing down your neck, and you have an anxiety attack and shit your pants in the Whole Foods and run around screaming, raving. What kind of life is that? What kind of life is this where we produce all this plastic garbage for nobody to use for more than a couple months before it gets tossed into a landfill? The Japanese, and I think the Germans too, they have so many sub-packaging of their products. Like, you open a Kit Kat bar in America, open it up, just a Kit Kat bar in the foil. But a Kinder bar, oh, so tasty, even better than a Kit Kat bar. But you open up that Kinder bar, what's in it? 2 little Twix type deal bars, but they're each in their own little plastic bag. And how long until that plastic bag disintegrates? 1,000,000 years? 500,000 years? I'll be kind and say 1,000 years. No, it's if you took all the Kinder wrappers that ever existed and piled them up since the beginning of Kinder bars, they'd still all be there, just in a big pile, going nowhere, doing nothing, taking up space, having given somebody diabetes. So strange. So weird. I think the only savior is each other. We have to find, as I'm reading lots of things, crazy far-right thinker, Nick Land, one of the things he said at the end of one of his papers was we have to forge new Amazons of our own. God, that's so crazy. Just think about that. Just the way he worded it. Forge new Amazons. It means we need, fractalized, atomized communities. But not atomized in a way where we're all separate, living in our homes, separate from each other. Like, we all have our own Plato's cave to contend with, and nobody's in there to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey man, get out. There's a world out there. Instead, you should find the people just like you through the internet, in real life, if there's a pottery club, if there's a movie club, we need to reestablish our communities because there's no other way. There's no other way to be. There's no other way to be. I mean, the less you try to establish, the more the government could just step in, or the more society can just step in and tell you what community you're going to be in. You're going to be in the 4chan community. What does that mean? It means you're going to sit there scrolling for hours with no real human contact, and maybe you post, maybe you just lurk, or maybe you start a board of your own, and not a board of your own, the government telling you what to do. Maybe the government would tell you to start a board of your own, and just be a Twitter thread. You would just get on Twitter and start tweeting at people and find a way to make it feel like it's supposed to be a community, but it's really not. It's not a community. I was talking to a friend about Reddit. Such a fun place. So many different boards and forums. But once it gets more than, every group has tens of thousands of users. And if a thread gets more than 10 or 20 comments, it's just to the dogs. There's no point in participating in a 100 comment thread unless you're interested in the Reddit karma. You just don't get that real. No, you're not talking to anybody. Nobody gives a shit about your Reddit comment. I do it too. Sometimes I want to put stuff on social media to just stir the shit pot, I just want to put some anti-government thing on Facebook so my mom and all her boomer friends can see it and go, oh, well, what an interesting political idea. But they're not seeing it. They don't care. Nobody cares. I don't even care. But for some reason I want to put it out there, just cast an idea out into the sphere. Not a really well thought out one, or not one that I really care about. This podcast and this could be something fun. This could be a long form idea you launch out there to the world. But your tweet, your Reddit post, and lost in the sea of a million ideas. Not even. I won't go so far as to call them ideas. I'll call them memes. Terrence McKenna said the meme is to an idea that I think DNA are to genes, something like that. Genes are to humans. The meme is what makes an idea. So it's, in a way, it's valuable to have all these memes spammed out everywhere. In another sense, they're not fully formed ideas, so you don't get the satisfactory crunch of an intellectual eureka moment. You just listen to some guy tweet about how bad Donald Trump is, or how Vladimir, go Ukraine. It's all bullshit. It's all complete bullshit. Really just take your money, no matter what happens, no matter the race, no matter what they're talking about, they just take your money, ship it off to a foreign country to fight another war, and then you're at home wondering about, is that beef I have in my fridge any good? Did it last? It doesn't really make any sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense. We live in a market economy because the rich and powerful need a way to keep generating money. I like the idea of a market economy, but it's clearly more fixed than some standard Milton Friedman free market economy. Now, I'm here thinking about doing different small things, and you want to get that idea out to people, but I don't think they care. I think they want a way out, but they don't want to be told that the market economy is the way to go. Because there's a little screwiness in there. You could put out your product and it'll all be fine. Everything will be good. But if your product is some cheap piece of plastic, then it's just going to go right into a dumpster one day. If your product is food-based, it's going to be full of these strange industrial chemicals like seed oils. If you're like chocolate, if you're going to sell chocolate, everybody loves chocolate. but it's just made by slaves, just picked by child slaves somewhere in Brazil, and Nestle and Mars get to pretend that, oh, I don't know what's going on. Literally no idea. Slaves? Oh, we try stopping that. We're working on it. They don't care. Nobody cares. We're caught up in this cyclone of a market economy that allows slavery while at the same time rallying against slavery on the domestic front. We go to black people and we go to American Indians and we tell them about slavery and all the horrible things that happened, and we as a country try to rectify our conscience with that. No more slaves. Awesome. But this is the real world. They find 14-year-olds working in the Hyundai plants in Alabama. They find kids working at slaughterhouses cleaning out the pig traps. This is in America. You don't think it's 1 million times worse in sub-Saharan Africa, in the Congo, in Brazil, in Asia, where you can just kidnap some strange child that has no ID, has no government registration, just put them to work on your cocoa farm? I mean, you're not going to do anything about it. You're going to keep eating chocolate, just like I'm going to keep eating chocolate. I don't want to, but, you don't think about it. You see a Crunch Bar and you're like, oh, god damn, that Crunch Bar is so fucking delicious. You're not going to think about child slaves. You're not going to think about the exorbitant amount of profits that Nestle or Mars are raking in, or Lindor, or Toblerone, or whatever. You're not going to think about that. You're just going to keep eating the chocolate. Eat the chocolate. Eat, consume, don't ask questions, consume. That's what our society's based off of. Maybe we can change it. Adam Smith, the guy who wrote the book on capitalism, talks about a good way to, capitalism is a market-directed thing, so it's founded on consumer choices. If people made better consumer choices, theoretically, the market would be a better place. If everybody refused to buy slave chocolate, there's a demand for chocolate. They'd have to make better chocolate. They'd have to make better, fairer practices for hiring and not kidnap African children from their villages and force them to work in sweltering cocoa forests. At least Willy Wonka brought all the Oompa Loompas back. We just let all these African kids die in some cocoa forest. I mean, we like to pretend like colonialism is over, but, Leopold chopping off the arms of Congolese people in Belgian Congo is the same as it is today. It's the same. I guarantee there are armless kids walking around who didn't meet their coca quotas. There are families whose children have died, or wives have suffered, or men who have been broken by just not meeting the quota so we can have our fucking Kit Kat bars. So strange. In Beast of No Nation, that great Netflix movie with Idris Elba, the movie starts off with the African kid, and it's not, it's about child soldiers, so they're technically slaves. But it's a strange little microcosm of a community. In the beginning of the movie, the kid is in his village, and his brother and his family, and they're praying and having fun, and then the rebels come out and they kill everyone, and the boy has to flee to the jungle and stumbles upon like a resistance group. But they're not a good resistance group. They're basically a militia run by Idris Elba, who's like a child molesting general who has the kids like snort a mixture of gunpowder and heroin before sucking his dick or something. I mean, that's the kind of world that we extract from. If there was even a problem with the cobalt, with the cobalt supply for all our electric cars, or problems with the chocolate supply, you don't think that people live and die 1 million lifetimes of civil war and strife just to improve the supply flow of chocolate? Of course they have. People have probably had whole historical epics over a lifetime of their journey from a child into slavery and maybe into an escape, and then they were found again and punished, and you'll never hear about them. You'll never see the story, because in real life, that crunch bar was more important to the global economy than that person's life. There's another slave you can bring in to replace them. You just need to keep pumping out more M&Ms. M&Ms are a vital ingredient of the global economy, and if we don't have M&Ms, this whole thing will go up in flames. Maybe that's what they want you to believe. They want you to think that we need these things. I haven't had a smartphone for months. I sold it to buy drugs. I don't regret it. I regret buying it back and selling it to buy drugs the second time, but the first time I don't regret it. Now, it's many months later, and I don't really feel any different without the phone. Don't really feel any different. I wish I had it because it's fun, but we don't really need it. We don't really need all these things. We don't really need gallon jugs of industrial soap that are technically from concentrate, but they don't tell you that. They don't want you to know it's from concentrate, because then you would have soap for a long time. Think about it that way. Meat, rice, you're supposed to buy these things in bulk. Economically speaking, you buy things in bulk, save in the long term. No, they want us to consume more and more. So even if you do buy things, you're not going to buy things in bulk. Let's be honest. You're not going to go to Costco and buy gallons of Dawn dish soap that you'll have for the next 6 months. You can keep watering down. No. You're going to stumble into the Ralphs, just like I do, just like everybody else does, late at night, pick out a bottle of orange Dawn dish soap, use it for a week, maybe a little bit of water in the bottom, and then you're off. You'll do that again every 2 weeks. And that's just part of the culture. There's no sign above the dish soap that says, "This is concentrate. Please add half to a tiny bottle and then proceed from there." No, they don't want to tell you those things. You can figure it out on your own, but it's not that hard to figure out on your own, but we don't want to. We want to use the highly concentrated dish soap because it gets our dishes cleaner. See, it's this right here versus Dawn non-concentrated. Well, I guess this is concentrated. See, so even on this bottle of Dawn dish soap, it basically implies that this tiny 12-ounce bottle is concentrated. But I don't use it that way. I don't think other people do either. I guess we all have to start making smarter choices. Better choices. Like Adam Smith said, we can improve a capitalist economy by, really being smarter consumers. If everybody bought books and art supplies instead of accessories for your iPhone or shitty Chinese phone charging cables that die after 2 weeks, you throw in the garbage. If we just bought better things, maybe this would be better. If we spent our money on things that are worthwhile and stimulated the human adventure, I think we'd be better off. But we don't. We buy chocolate and fried chicken, things that kill us, just because we have some sort of death wish. As one of Nick Land's books is, I think it's titled "A Thirst for Annihilation," and that is what we have. Human beings have a thirst for annihilation. I don't think it's always been that way. Maybe it comes from we understand where we're moving with AI and technology increasing at such a rapid pace. We know that we're playing a losing game, and so we just want to annihilate ourselves. We just want to destroy ourselves and the planet to give birth to some technological monster just because we can. or just because modern society wants us to. What do the rich people who own modern society do when the AI machine catches from its cocoon and rules over the entire earth? I don't know. But I do know that it's coming, and people are becoming more useless by the day. They're intelligent people find smart workarounds, but they're becoming less skilled. There's a great YouTube video called Anime Rock Paper Scissors that some group called Collider constructed with AI, where it's a sort of faux anime rock paper scissors type shonen deal. It'll last for 2 minutes. Doesn't look that good. It looks interesting and new and novel, but I think that's what a lot of these things are. It's just novelty. They're all gimmicks. They're just trying to get you to buy a new thing, consume, don't ask questions, consume. And it's like that for everything, it seems. So many things just seem like gimmicks. Cheap gimmicks. Computer-generated images, CGI and CGI movies, they seem so cool once upon a time, like it was the future. But I really don't feel like it's gotten any better since Shrek 2. Avatar, a new Avatar just came out. I don't really care. All these CG movies are coming out. I don't really care. All these non-CG movies are coming out, and people are color correcting on their computers, and it doesn't really matter. I don't really care. It's the same thing. You're not capturing things in camera and then running them through dyes to create the beautiful pictures we know from cinema. Instead, you're just using your high-powered digital camera, taking a nice photo or taking a nice video, and then just coloring it afterwards in a computer program. Make everything orange and blue, so it has this gross, sort of sterile, faux creative color palette and appearance. This makes me sick. Just makes me sick. So many things in our life. I think it makes everybody sick. Maybe I'm the only one who holds an opinion about CGI and CGI movies, but I don't think I am. There have to be others out there. Quentin Tarantino, Paul Thomas Anderson, I think Christopher Nolan. They're guys that cherish cinema. There's a movie, Shiva Baby, that came out a couple years ago. The girl, I think, made it for $200K. They got a 16 millimeter camera, I think, and they shot the whole thing. It looks fucking great. It looks better than any of the big budget movies coming out today. Think about that. Marvel will spend $300 million on a movie, and it just looks like shit. And it's just not as good as somebody who spent $200,000 on a movie. I couldn't believe it. I can't believe it that American culture and cinema went from a place that was on top of the world and so innovative to basically corrupting the entire earth with bullshit, gimmicky technology that makes it easier for amateurs to get into the game. But like Quentin Tarantino said, why a professional, an established person would want to use this low caliber technology? He doesn't understand it. And frankly, I don't understand it. It's easy. It's cheap. I think I ran the cost on a film. It'd be like $15,000 if you wanted to do 90 minutes of 35 millimeter footage plus processing. $15,000. That's impossible. You could make an entire feature with that money on a digital camera. But then hopefully that would get the studios involved, so it'd give you some more money so you could make an aesthetically beautiful movie. Instead, just get shit. Let's get CG garbage, artificially colored garbage, movie garbage. I don't want to be a gatekeeper, but is it cinema? In my heart of hearts, I want to say it's always cinema if you enjoy it, but I don't really give a shit. God, when I watch Wheels on Meals, there's a cheesy little 80s Hong Kong action comedy. And it was just so much more fun to watch and look at and enjoy than all these modern movies. And they're good modern movies. People hate Velma, but God, I love the 2D animation in that show. I love that all the hand drawn backgrounds with the little imperfections and the great little character expressions. It was a wonderful show in that regard. And you get CG, you get AI animation. You look at it, it's just the rotoscoping. It's not anime. Rotoscoping isn't necessarily the same thing as animation. It could be, but it's not really. Animation is supposed to be a whole other dimension. Film is supposed to be another dimension. And then you meet somewhere in the middle with like CGI computer generated garbage, and it just feels like you're still in the same dimension, grasping at straws. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I think it was Takashi Miike, the director of Visitor Q and Ichi the Killer, among other great movies that people love, where he said the different mediums are like different styles of paint, oil versus acrylic. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe instead of, I think it'll be hard. I think it's hard to divorce that idea for myself. I don't really want to, but it gets hard to deal with the stress of the future. And maybe they're just different kinds of paints. Maybe they are like acrylic, oil, and watercolor, and in the future there'll be room for all of them. I could only hope. When a Quentin Tarantino movie comes out, people flock to the theaters. It's a huge hit. All over the globe, people love them. Is it because of film? I don't know. I think that the sincerity shines through. There are great movies on digital, and the sincerity shines through. But I don't think it's a stretch to say that when movies were on film, they were fantastic. Not all of them, but God, they colored our language. They colored our culture. When people talk, they go, I can't tell you the amount of times you hear people talk, or you hear podcasters, people on the internet, and midway through the sentence they go, just like in X movie or whatever, just like in Jaws, listening to Joe Rogan, and they're talking about something, and he goes, and just like the cow in Twister, we use movies as analogies for finding things finding expressions we don't exactly have the words for. And that's a beautiful thing. And I don't want it to fade away. I think we have to refill the well. The well's running dry. There aren't a lot of great movies coming out. A lot of these Marvel movies are total shit. Total shit. And I think the good thing is people are starting to pick up on it. I mean, God, when you watch Iron Man 2, it's a CGI movie, and it obviously wasn't shot on film, but God, it feels like I feel like Jon Favreau really had a vision, and they really executed it, and it has heart, and it has character, but not anything since. Everything. I remember it being, I think, 2012 when the Avengers came out, and I was so fucking excited to go see the Avengers. All of my favorite childhood superheroes finally together on the big screen in a giant action sequence. And midway through the movie, I remember so specifically thinking, oh, this is just average. This isn't the amazing thing like Watchmen was. Watchmen was still to this day the best superhero movie. But it was a gang of heroes you didn't know coming together in their story. In the Avengers, you would hope it would have the same gravity as Watchmen, which came out 3 years before. Instead, it's just boring. And it just set the stage for the rest of the MCU. And it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Every time you look at a Marvel movie, even the news is picking up on it now, where they don't even care. They just want, critics and people. I think they're starting to lose interest, which is good. There's room for true cinema. There's room for people who have desires and passions to reflect on the big screen or the small screen. You just need to find your own communities. We need to forge these communities. We need to find a way that we can all make our way back into small communities. Even if they're on the internet, maybe there's just a way that we can solve this problem of human unconnectivity. When I was a kid, all this promise of this new technology and social media was supposed to bring us all closer together. And it has in one way, but in another massive way, it's given us an excuse to not participate in real life anymore. We need to forge our own Amazons of our own. How do we do it? I don't know. Do something you love. Find something you love. Find other people that love that same thing, and you can have it. I've been smoking a lot of weed recently, and it really doesn't make me want to participate in society anymore. I've always subtly felt that way, and I always thought, God, weed was smoking too much weed, it's a problem. But I like it. I like smoking weed and sitting there doing nothing. Is that wrong? Is it evil to, pretend I'm some sort of ape human in the grasslands 80,000 years ago? Like, just smoking weed in the sun? Is that so wrong? I was reading about Scythian horse archers and how they would consume cannabis. They actually found a woman, I think they called it the Ice Maiden, somewhere in Russia near the Scythian steppe where they all were from. I think the Scythians were the progenitors of the Mongol hordes. But they found like some shaman woman in the ice, and she had like a cannabis pipe on her. And the way the Scythians would smoke it, these were crazy horse archers that dominated the Eurasian steppe. They would throw cannabis seeds onto charcoal, onto a fire, and they would crackle in the smoke. They would put a tent over themselves and let basically ancient Scythian hotboxing. Maybe we need to get back to that. Maybe we all need ancient Scythian hotboxing in our lives.